also on the Hill yesterday, this bombshell hearing. It happened yesterday as House Republicans turned up the pressure on the Southern Poverty Law Center. It's one of the nation's most prominent civil rights organizations. The House Judiciary Committee held this hearing. It was titled Manufacturing Hate, Part 2. It examined all these allegations that the SPLC secretly funneled millions of dollars in tax-exempt donor money to members of the KKK and other extremist groups. The SPLC has denied wrongdoing, argues that the case is politically motivated. It's now working its way through the court system, too. I want to welcome in our panel on this, the Vice President of the Government Accountability Institute, Eric Edgars. Also with us, Daily Signal columnist Drew Thomas Allen. Gentlemen, good morning. Good to see you both.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So the House Judiciary Committee Chairman, Jim Jordan, no housekeeping. He gets to the microphone. He led the charge yesterday. It was this fiery hearing, straight out accusing the SPLC of generating hate and profiting from it. He also spoke very clearly about this informant program, this alleged informant program. Here's part of his opening statement.
It's always worse than we thought. The one thing we get wrong when we start these investigations, when we start this oversight, is it's always worse than we thought. We now have the superseding indictment from the Justice Department. It wasn't $3 million that they were paying these field sources. It was actually $4 million the Southern Poverty Law Center paid to field sources. And they didn't just pay them to foment the hate they told their donors they were fighting. They actually dated them. That's right. Southern Poverty Law Center employee was in a romantic relationship with field source number 9, a member of the Racist National Alliance. This SPLC employee, who was supposed to be dismantling hate groups with the Intelligence Project, was dating the field source that they were paying. And in fact, they had a joint bank account. Wow. And guess what the SPLC paid this individual? $1.2 million to, again, create and foment the hate they told their donors they were fighting.
Right out of the gate. Wow. I mean, it was really fiery. I watched almost every minute of it. But that is how Jim Jordan set the table for the hearing, Drew.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's really rich that these individuals are out there gaslighting us, talking about them coming under fire as some sort of, political persecution. I think it's important that people understand, this represents something broader, which is a tactic of the left, whether it's Trump-Russia collusion with the funding of the Steele dossier, whether it's the Anti-Defamation League that claims falsely that, all extremism comes from the right. This is what they do. They have a political motivation, a target, and then they create and manufacture the evidence in order to bring about, persecution and prosecution of those groups falsely. It's so dangerous to this republic.
Yeah, Eric, the numbers that Jim Jordan spoke of, they were really jaw-dropping. $4 million paid to groups like the KKK and Antifa. Those are the allegations or the accusations. Again, I want to be clear, this is playing out in a court of law, but that's what transpired yesterday on the House floor, and a lot of the evidence was presented.
No, a lot of the evidence was presented. I don't know how yesterday was for you, but for me, I thought I was having a bad day. Like, I cut myself shaving, my kids were crying, and then all of a sudden I saw Brian Fair have to step up in front of this congressional hearing and testify and own this complete disaster of what they've done. So it made me feel a lot better about what's happening in my own personal life. And then it got even better because what they said is like, look, it's not that we were, kind of stealing money and funding hate groups who may or may not have been dating some of our employees. It says, no, we were just funding undercover investigations, like they're their own spin-off of Matlock or something. But in fact, it's actually more cartoonish, like it's like an episode of Scooby-Doo. We would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for these silly feds who just happened to uncover and expose this and then bring us into accountability. There are no good answers for the Southern Poverty Law Center, and yesterday just proved it on a national stage.
Yeah, you make a good point. If you thought you had a bad day yesterday, imagine being Mr. Keith yesterday answering some of those questions. So a lot of those testifying, actually, who were sworn in, Alveda King, she's the niece of the late civil rights leader, Dr. Martin Luther King. She was there criticizing the SPLC, argued against manufactured racial tension. Those were her exact words. Here's one of her comments.
It's misguided compassion that brings us here today. It is misguided compassion that puts me on a domestic terrorist list. I think that is very unfair. And old people like me giving money to SPLC and then calling me later, oh my God, they believe it's okay to cut a boy's penis off? I was like, seems like they're spending a little money to do that. And people are totally shocked. I hope people will take the medicine and come on and admit that they are funding some things. They might be doing some good stuff. But look like this. I have a dog, and I'm making some brownies. And they chocolate. The dog poops some brown stuff. I put a little secret ingredient in there. And I put it in my brownies, and the people get worms. It's not right. It's just not right.
Those were just some of her comments. It went on throughout the entire hearing. Again, to be very clear, there are lawsuits being filed. But Eric, I want to stay with you on this, with your accountability hat on. Will there ever be any real accountability? What does it look like? And what does it look like if it does come?
First, I thought you were totally going to throw to Drew after the poop and brownies quote, but I would just say that
I'll get to him. I'll get to him.
Okay, thanks for bringing that one to me. I would just say I think, this is what accountability looks like. Accountability looks like having hearings and putting people, there are literally indictments for this, right? So I actually think that this is the best case scenario. It's an entirely new day, whether it's the fraud that Vice President Vance's committee and you're hearing about it at agencies. These cabinet meetings, everyone's kind of like scrambling over themselves to expose more fraud. You've got the Department of Justice that's now being aggressive and I think having like a forward-facing posture towards exposing things like this. I actually think it's an incredibly different day, and America is better for it. And honestly, so is just the truth. Honesty and accountability, as you heard Dr. King speak, what did they say? Transparency and sunlight is the best disinfectant. This is what the Southern Poverty Law Center needs, sadly, and I think the whole country should be better for it because they actually do have, no one should be against exposing hate groups.
Yeah.
The Southern Poverty Law Center just chose to do the opposite.
Yeah.
They chose to fund. So, maybe we should try something else.
Yeah, it's something we can all get behind, right? Hate's not good, no matter. And that was one of the questions from one of the lawmakers. It's like, have you, found an Iranian, a pro-Iranian or IRGC group, radical group? Have you listed them on their hate map? And they couldn't list one. They couldn't find one. Hate is hate, and you call it out. Supporters, Drew, they say SPLC plays this really important role, to Eric's point, in tracking extremism and calling out these hate groups. Erica Kirk had something to say, posting on social media yesterday. She wrote, TPUSA was placed on SPLC's hate map. And the day before Charlie Kirk's murder, they published a newsletter attacking him and TPUSA. It gives me chills. When Mr. Fields was defending that, he was questioned. He's the interim director. He was asked about taking down those comments about TPUSA and having them marked as a hate group. He doubled down. It was a shocking moment.
Well, he's a liar and a fraud, just like the entire organization. This is somebody who took it down right in the aftermath, which demonstrates that they somehow express some kind of responsibility for that. And, To Erica's point and the revelations about, TPUSA being put on a hate map, it's not just that they're funding existing hate groups to manufacture these crimes. They're actually inventing and creating hate groups where there aren't any. TPUSA wasn't a hate group. And, of course, this is an arm. All of these things, the ADL, the SPLC, they all work, hand in glove with the Democrat Party to create justification for the elimination of their political opponents. And I don't just mean in terms of, Charlie Kirk's assassination, but I mean, getting rid of them, investigating, TPUSA, trying to defund them, et cetera. And this cannot persist in this country. It's very dangerous.
Drew Thomas, Allen, Eric Eggers. Gentlemen, thanks for the conversation. Good to see both of you.